Hey, what's up? I'm Anna. Welcome to my channel. We're going to be talking about Netflix documentary, The Tinder Swindler. Now, I had never heard of this. This is news to me. So, let's get into it. So, we open up the film with Cecile. She's 29. She's from Norway. And she had been on Tinder for 7 years. And when she matched with Simon, she do what we all do when we meet somebody. We check their social media. So she checked his Instagram, and she saw he had a whole bunch of pictures and him on business trips and all that. She just wanted to make sure, I guess, that he wasn't a catfish. So he immediately sends her a message, and he asked her to meet for coffee because he's leaving for London the next day. Red flag number one. I ain't never been on a dating site, but I don't think I would be comfortable with, like, we just matched, we barely said hello to each other, and you want to immediately meet up. Like, yeah, it's in a public place, but I'm good. But Cecile is all with it. So she ends up going. And, when she meets him, he ends up, telling her about himself, and that he's the CEO of a diamond company, LLD Diamonds, and his father is the owner. And he told her that he was in town, to see his daughter. So, I guess after that date, they end up communicating again, I think soon after, and he wanted to take her to Bulgaria, and she's like, okay, yeah, cool. I'm not gonna, sir, I'm not letting you take me anywhere out of the country. Bulgaria? I don't know you, but Cecile is not me. So he picked her up in a Rolls Royce, and she texting her friends like, girl, he picked me up in a Rolls Royce. He taking me to Bulgaria on a private jet. And they like, no, girl, that ain't the move. You don't even know that man. Why would you be getting on a private jet with him? He could be trying to kidnap you. But Cecile is very trusting. So Cecile tells us that his BM and his daughter was on a private jet. Was on that same private jet on their first date. That's red flag number 2. Like, this is supposed to be our date, and you knew this was our date. So why wouldn't you have something arranged? Like, I don't know. It just, that would have been sketchy to me. Like, why is she here? You making this extra awkward for no reason. What else ended up happening? So they end up going on a date again. They get back to the hotel, and as they on their way to the room, they're in the elevator, and she ends up kissing him. And then when they go to the room, they end up having sex. And when she feels on his back, he got like marks and shit on his back. So she asked him about it, and he like, oh, I was in a South African jail. I had a business deal, and the deal went wrong, and I ended up getting locked up. But he's innocent. So after he told her that, later on that night, he kept getting phone calls, and he told her that it was his business. He's like, oh, my business is so busy. We're going to have to pick this up another time. So he sent her back to London. That's where she was at. He sent her back to London. So after he sends her back to London, they lost connection for a little while, and then they started texting again, and he randomly asked her for her address just in conversation. And one day he sends her an invitation to a hotel when he was in town. So she goes, and then he ends up telling her that he needed to finish a $70 million deal, and that if he doesn't, his life is in danger. He told her that he was getting death threats. He was showing her pictures and text messages of the threats, and somebody sent a bullet to his house, and all types of shit. Okay, so this man that you just met on Tinder, after maybe not even knowing him for a full month, is worth all of this? Because once you told me you was getting death threats, we not invested. So I don't have no problems with walking away from you. Bye. Death threats, I don't have to be a part of this. I'm out. But Cecile was like, okay. She ended up Googling him, and he used a fake name, and he made it seem like he was affiliated with the Lviv billionaire family, and I guess who has ties with Vladimir Putin or something. Some other crazy ass shit. So then they show us another woman, Pernilla. She's 31, and she was also on Tinder looking for people. She was looking for someone well-traveled and they got a little coin, because Pernilla made it seem like she had a little money. Come to find out, she really didn't. But she ended up finding Simon, and they both, I guess, swiped right on each other. And they end up talking back and forth nonstop, and he ended up asking for her flight information, her passport information, and she gave it to him. So he wanted her to get on a flight immediately from Stockholm to Amsterdam. And I guess when they was getting the information back and forth between Simon and Pernilla, they sent her an email, and the email had the business information like at the bottom of it. Like when you finish your email and then you know, sign the company at the end of the sheet, it said LLD Diamonds or something like that. And she had to throw in there, oh, he was another diamond guy. Like, girl, you about to get got, so you might want to chill out. So they get to she gets to Amsterdam, and they go to lunch, and she said the food just keeps coming out. He just keeps ordering stuff, and the food keeps coming. It was just like an endless buffet in this expensive ass restaurant. Like, and then he ended up she told us that they went to a diamond museum, and then she said after an hour she felt like she really knew him, like she had known him for a long time. How after an hour you felt like you known this man for a long time? Like, you made a connection with somebody based off some bullshit. Like, how can you make a connection with somebody who's bullshitting you? I don't know. Anyway, so he ended up asking Pernilla to move in with him, and he told her that the budget was $15,000 per month for rent. So she ended up looking for apartments, and they flipped back to Cecile. So one day in the middle of the night, Simon sends Cecile a picture of his bodyguard Peter with blood on his head, and he tells Cecile that his enemies tried to take a hit out on him. So she's panicking. By this point, she's in love with this man, And he tells her that his enemies are tracking his spending through his American Express cards, so he couldn't use them. And he wanted to know if he could use her card for 2 weeks to get it in her name. And she said, yeah. And I'm like, at this point, whatever finna happen to you, I'm starting not to feel bad, because once I already would have been done when he said he was getting death threats. Does that sound like some bullshit? And now he's telling you that his enemies, which he never really specified who these enemies are and what they want him for. And he like, what enemies? Why do you have enemies? What the fuck you been out here doing? It would have been over by then. Where am I at in my notes? And she blew me. So she ended up doing it. And he told her that he was going to pay her back. And he sent her a picture of a bank receipt that was $22,000. So I guess that made her feel comfortable that the money was coming. And then he told her, I need you to bring $25,000 in cash to Amsterdam. And she like, you just got some money. Why do we need cash right now? He was like, cause it's untraceable. So this lady goes and get a quick loan for $25,000. And it's like, so every time, like, you really gave that man all of that money that you took out, like literally every red cent you took out. You let him max out a card, and then you took out $25,000 in cash, and you ain't take a little bit of it. And then that outrageous amount of money, just because you showed me that you rich, that would have made me feel like you had something stashed up somewhere. You shouldn't need me. You got dollars on dollars. You flying me out. Like, you should have the money for this. I shouldn't have to give you no $25,000, but she go for it. So then she gets to Amsterdam, give him the $25,000, and while they chilling in the hotel, he had an apartment in Amsterdam. They chilling in the apartment in Amsterdam, and security calls him, and he immediately deletes his Instagram. And then he was like, they've located where I am. Talking about his enemies located where he is. And then he tells her she needs to delete her Instagram because they can find him by way of her. So after they do all of that, security calls him again and talking about they know exactly where you are. You need to get out of the house. There's been a security breach. And they tell her to leave. They told them to turn the lights off in the apartment. And I'm just like, so this man got you in there doing all this right here. And it's a scam. He got you ducking in the dark for some bullshit. So then, after that, he leaves. And he goes to Spain. He tells her he got to get out the country. He can't be there no more. He needs to get out. So he go to Spain with the $25,000, mind you. He get to Spain and he hit up Pernilla like, what out? What you about to get into? Like, let's link. He flies her out. And he end up partying with her. They go to some type of club, and I guess, they was partying, and I guess it wasn't Pernilla's scene. Like, I guess they was too rowdy for her. So she ended up leaving the party. While they was at the party, she say he is throwing money left and right, paying everybody in cash, giving extra tips, being extra generous. So she ended up leaving. And the next day, when she tried to link up with him again, he had already went on to the next place. So we flip back to Cecile, and I'm guessing he immediately left because he spent that $25,000 with Pernilla at that club, and now American Express is blocking the card. I ain't never had no American Express card. I don't know why they was blocking the card. I guess he was spending too much money, but they was blocking the card. Every time he tried to get something out, they blocked it. So he had her calling the bank, trying to find out why the card was blocked and what they needed to do to get the card unblocked, and trying to tell them how much money he needed to access. And Simon is trying to text Cecile quick back and forth so they can make sure that it seemed like it's legit. So when that wasn't working, Simon decided to come up with an idea to start making fraudulent check stubs saying that Cecile worked at his company and that she was making what it was, $9,000 or $94,000. It couldn't have been $94,000, but she was making $9,000 something every 2 weeks. So that way they can up her credit limit at American Express. And they did that for a while. He ended up getting another $25,000. Flip back to Pernilla. He meet Pernilla in Greece, and he got a new girlfriend who is a model. Her name was Paulina. Meanwhile, while he's in Greece kicking the bobos, Cecile is wondering what he doing. Like, when are you coming back out here? I need to see you. I want you to meet my parents. And he keeps telling her, no, like, I can't come back there. Like, there are people after me. So she's like, well, I want him to be safe, so, being understanding. And I'm just like, you real goofy. You goofy as hell. Because by this point, you should know that this is some bullshit. Every time he gets some money from you, he get ghosts. But then when he needs some more, he's able to get in the vicinity of you. Some bullshit. So Pernilla is telling us that they going to hotels that are $5,000 per night. He going to the Billionaires Club, and they start at $2,000 for a reservation. He ends up spending $20,000 within 3 days. So he keep telling me, like, this is a constant cycle at this point. He ran out of money. He calls Cecile to keep taking out loans. And the next loan she took out was $40,000. And then they flipped to Pernilla saying, we did all this, we partied, and we had an amazing summer. Then I think Cecile said she ended up taking out a $250,000 loan for this food. I said, like, this was, after a while, that was my face when I was watching this. Because I'm just like, ain't no way. But I learn every day that everybody ain't got the capacity to understand what's good for them and what ain't. So anyway, they flip back to Cecile, and Cecile has finally had enough, and she's like, look, I need my money. Like, I am drowning in debt. Like, I can't do this no more. I need you to give me my money. So he like, all right, I'll cut you a check. He like, come to Amsterdam. So she get to Amsterdam, and he just real cold towards her. But she saw the check, and he had cut her a check for more than her debt. So she gets back home, and she immediately cashes a check. I guess she tried to deposit it into her bank account. She said 4 days passed. She had been checking her bank account every single day, checking it. Nothing is coming. She called the bank, and the bank told her that they're not gonna do it. They didn't tell her why. They just told her that they were not gonna process the check. So she called him, and she like panicking, like, bro, they telling me they're not gonna process the check. Like, what are you gonna do? And he like, nothing. I did my part. I gave the check. Whatever happened after it left my hands is not my problem. This lady said she got 9 creditors calling her, emailing her every single day. So, the creditors ended up, I think she said the creditors, somebody came out to see her, and she tells them everything that happened with Simon. And they asked for the picture of him. She shows them the picture, and they recognize him. And they like, this is the man. So this is when Cecile finds out that he's a fraud, and he's been scamming people. She finds out they were showing pictures of the pictures that she thought she was seeing on Instagram. All of them bitches was photoshopped. Like, he was photoshopping himself in pictures with other people. I'm just like, wow. Y'all really thought this out. It'd be crazy the shit that people put their effort in for illegal stuff. Like, if you channel this energy somewhere else, you wouldn't go to jail. So she cries, she tell her mama that she can't believe this happened, and her mama tell her to come back home. So when she gets back home to her mom, she ends up blocking Simon. So she forgot that Simon had her mother's house number, so he ended up calling her mama phone, and I couldn't really make out what he said, but it was insinuated that he threatened her. So she said she was scared, and she called the police, and the police didn't care. So after that, she was having a hard time dealing. Like, she said she was driving on the road, and she saw this truck, and she said she should just like swerve over and let whatever happen. And I'm just like, that's terrible. So now we flip back to Pernilla. Simon is sending Pernilla news articles about, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, it was such elaborate BS that I couldn't even piece together what he was even trying to tell her. He sent her articles about somebody being held for ransom, and something about Russia being involved with this ransom, and I'm just like, huh? And he said something about, he told Pernilla something about he's involved with a girl he knew. I guess he was hanging out with her, and she ended up committing the S word, and he thinks it's a conspiracy. So as a result of that, they shut his cards down and he can't use them. And then he ended up sending her the same picture of Peter, the security guard. Literally the exact same pictures of him bloodied up. And he give her the same spiel. He tell her that I need $30,000. She ended up sending it to him. So Cecile has ended up getting in touch with some investigators and journalists, and they went through all of over 400 WhatsApp messages, files, pictures, voice messages, videos, and they ended up looking for the other victims that Simon had did this to, and these victims were from Finland, And they asked Cecile to skim through the victims' names and pictures and see if she recognized anybody. She recognized the baby mama. The baby mama was a victim 3 years prior to the day that Cecile met them on the plane. So I'm assuming that he scammed her and she swindled her way into getting paid from it. So once Cecile found out all this information, they contacted somebody from Israel so they could see his apartment. They ended up finding out where he really lived, and they ended up finding out that his real name was Shimon Savev. I can't remember the last name. They went to his last known address in a dilapidated apartment in Israel. They couldn't get into the apartment building, but none of where he stayed is anything like the life that he was trying to portray that he had when he was doing all this scam and shit. So apparently they went to the Israeli police, and the Israeli police woman, she was able to identify him, and she said, yeah, he been doing this since he was a teenager, and he's wanted in Israel at the time he was. So he ended up asking Pernilla for some more money. She sent him $10,000, and then he sends her a bank receipt for $100,000. So she calls him thanking him, and I'm just like, so you really think he finna send you that much more money? Like, come on now. The money never came. So he kept feeding her BS, and she was booking him flights back and forth, and he told her that the bank put a hold on his account. So he was going to fly her out to wherever he is, and he's going to give her one of his watches that are worth $100K, and that's where she can get her money from. So the journalist contacts Pernilla. They ended up finding her, and they outed Simon to her. And she sent Simon the message, and of course he said it was all a lie. So she meets up with the journalist, and Pernilla ends up finding out about Cecile. And basically his system for this scam was to have two women, and both women that he showed that he had money. He lived lavish lifestyles. One woman he would party with, and then the other woman he would make fall in love with them. And then once he fall on hard times with one, then he could pick up with the other one. And then by the time he pick up with another one, he ends up meeting a different woman. So the scam continues. It's a mess. What happened? Pernilla ends up getting with the journalist, and they end up having to prove to the police that he was doing the scam. So she meets with him in Munich, Germany, I believe, and they meet at a restaurant. And at this point, she's just asking him, like, how many people have you been doing this to? Because I already know what you've been doing. And he acting like he don't know what she talking about, and he gives her the watch. So he order everything on the menu, and then they leave. And as they leave, and they look across the street, and Simon end up seeing the journalist across the street filming him. So he gets pissed off, starts speaking in his native language to his security guard, and he gets mad. He tell her to get in the car, and they speed off. So Pernilla, like, at this point, I need to save my own life. And as she in the car, she trying to play the role, and she like, are your enemies after me? Like, is this somebody that's been chasing you? And he like, no, they're not after you. You don't got to worry about that. So she like, let me out. He end up letting her out the car. She gets home and she found out the watch is fake. He calls Pernilla while they filming the documentary, and she put him on speaker so we could hear. And he still lying to her, and she like, I know everything already. Like, just tell me the truth, trying to get him to confess. And he's not confessing. So, Cecile says a big newspaper article ended up dropping the story about Simon being a Tinder swindler. And it got so big, it got all over social media, and all of the women felt some type of way about it because people was going in the comments calling them goofy. And it's giving goofy. Feel how you feel. So Cecile and Pernilla and Cecile end up linking up and going on a press tour trying to warn everybody across the country about the Tinder swindler and watch out for him, trying to get his picture out there all over the internet. You know, just trying to get the word out there as much as possible. They said this man was reported to the police in 7 different countries and nothing ever happened to him. So they randomly cut to this woman, and her name is Alina. And she starts telling us that she met Simon on Tinder, and they had been in a relationship for 14 months. And as she was on her way to get on a plane, she saw his picture online. She's like, this is my boyfriend's picture. Why is it on the internet? So she clicked on it, and it was an article calling him the Tinder swindler. And she's like, what the F is this? So she sent it to him, and then he ended up calling her, but she didn't answer it. She put her phone on airplane mode, but she downloaded the article to read it. And she ended up finding out everything that had been going on with these other women. And she started comparing notes. She compared her story to the other women's story. He had sent her pictures of the bodyguard. She had lent him over $140,000. She ended up calling the police when she found out all of this. And the police said they couldn't do anything because they're building a case on it. So somehow she ends up reaching out to Pernilla. And after reaching out to Pernilla and weighing her options, she thought about it. She's like, I have the upper hand right now. Because Alina works in luxury fashion. And of course, Simon had to wear luxury fashion to make sure that he kept up the charade. So she tells Simon that she didn't believe the article and that she loved him and she believed him and she still loved him and she wanted to be with him. But she had already decided that she was about to swindle him. So she told him that she was going to help him sell his clothes to get some money. She like, I can really get a lot of money for these clothes that you got, all these luxury items, like I can flip it. So he like, I bet. He also gets an American Express card sent to her house under a new alias, which is David Sharon. He had already had probably over 100 different aliases at this point, but he was under a new alias, and she had proof of that. So she sent that picture to the police. So, you know, they're in Prague, and Simon and Alina are in Prague, and I guess he's just trying to figure out what his next move is going to be. So Simon set an appointment in the middle of Prague, and he asked Alina to go with him. So she was like, yeah. So they ended up at a plastic surgeon, and she was like, why are we here? This man wanted to get his chin done, his cheeks done, and his nose done. And the surgeon said, no, I'm not doing it because that's the surgery that criminals want. And Alina said she almost spit out her water and said, he is a criminal. That's why he's trying to get the surgery. But she had to hold her composure in order for her scheme to go right. So, Simon ended up crying because he don't know what he about to do. They said no to the surgery, so he's upset. Later on, they go to dinner, and then they end up back at a hotel, and she didn't take into account that she was going to have to sleep with this man. So she said he didn't try anything crazy, but she couldn't sleep. She stayed awake all night staring at the ceiling. So the next morning, she packed 3 massive suitcases of Simon's clothes. And she brought it to the car. She said Simon did not help her bring the bags to the car. And then he gave her a letter and told her to read it on the plane. So she read the letter on the plane. He was like, oh, thank you so much for helping me. You've been such a blessing, and I can't wait to marry you and have kids with you. All the shit that he's been telling all the other women that he's ran this scam on. So, where am I at? So she gets back to her hometown. I can't remember right now what her hometown is, but she gets back home and she starts selling his clothes. And he's calling her and texting her, and she's not really answering the phone. And when she do answer the phone, she's telling him, I haven't really sold anything. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. So, like crazy MFs do, he's calling irate 1 minute and then calling calmly, apologizing for being irate. And then he calling again, finna have a conniption, and then he calling back talking about, oh, I'm so sorry. So he's doing that back and forth, and he's like, it don't take 3 weeks for you to give me my money. But at this point, she don't give a damn. She's paying her bills off that you made her in debt for with your clothes. And I ain't mad at her. I said, you better do it, Elena. I'm glad somebody was able to swindle the swindler. Because all of this is some bullshit. So what ended up happening after that? While they was filming, this mama is still getting notifications that she's getting offers for clothes that she got for sale on the internet. I'm like, you better do it. I know he's somewhere sick. Well, maybe not. He found out what she was doing. He was sending her threatening messages and phone calls. And she said she enjoyed watching him suffer. And he ended up going broke. He was staying in hostels, $12 a night, 1 star. Basically like a homeless shelter. A little cot. Sorry, I'm gonna have to call her back. He was staying in the cot. He ended up going broke. He ended up gaining weight. He had a raggedy beard. And she said to his day, oh no, he said he went on a flight to, he got on a flight to Greece. He ended up telling her that he wanted to go to Greece. And somehow she figured out the flight that he was going to be on. And she ended up telling the police, and Interpol arrested him at the airport. And to this day, he has no idea that she did it, but he probably know now. He went to jail, but he was released after 5 months. Do y'all know that this fool has opened up a business, an online business, offering business advice for $311? His security and associates was never charged with anything associated with what he was doing. His baby mama denies everything. The model chick left him because he found out she was cheating. Because she found out he was cheating. Not because he was scamming people, but because he was cheating on her. Um, he's living as a free man in Israel. And they say that all three women are still paying off their debt. He was never charged with defrauding them. And he has swindled at least $10 million across the globe and counting. Cecile got her dumb ass back on Tinder. And yeah, Netflix said they reached out to him to see if he wanted to be a part of the documentary. And he sent them a voice message and he told them that he would sue them for defamation. Real angrily. And I'm like, this was a fool. And anybody that's getting swindled in 2022, you deserve to get swindled, baby.